that you aren't just responsible for yourself, but for the society too. So, hello, sir. How have you been?
I have been great. For now, I am running my new venture, which is called Curentia. It is going to be a school of leadership. Uh, the vision that we have with this school is that we're trying to embed startup incubation centers and experiential leadership development model into a high school or into, say grade 6 and above can actually execute on the business ideas, enter into an apprenticeship model, mentorship model, upskilling model, and a personal growth model. We're trying to accelerate the rate of self evolution for these kids at school. uh, and on the other side, I'm also studying side by side at the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn. um, I am uh, studying at the Graduate School of Education, trying to pursue entrepreneurial education and innovation in edtech marketscape. That's what's been happening, um, but it's good. I think the impact that we're trying to make uh, has a long way to go, and I
Right.
think every step of the way is learning.
Right. So, to all the people watching my podcast, I have a very small audience. Now, it's not a very big audience, but his sir was the primary reason that I started it. I was in a conversation with sir where he actually made me realize that there was no point having a skill until you can showcase that to the world and you can utilize it to make money. So this was one of the reasons I started this podcast or the Instagram page or any web presence that I have till now. Well, I still remember drafting my first mail and not sending it to sir. Well, I was 4 podcasts down when I thought that yes, I was ready now that I could send it to sir, because I thought that I was lacking the ability to coordinate with whom I thought was my greatest mentor to put me out on this platform. Coming to the backdrop of this story, I went through sir's page and really felt really intrigued in talking, about talking about my problems and seeking his help when it came to that. And sir also happens to study in the same school as I do, in the same franchise, that is the Yadavindra Public School, Patiala, and I studied in Mohali. So I went through sir's page and I saw that sir was also involved with the ISAC. And the next ventures he took upon, I saw that they were very much related to it. So, sir, can you tell us about how did you come being with ISAC and how did ISAC happen in your life?
Right. So I remember how I sort of knew about this was that I have an elder sibling. One of his batchmates used to be serving as the vice president of ISAC when I must be in grade 7 or 8 then. And so when I entered college, somebody came there to present the recruitment form. And like any other child, I would normally have no interest in anything beyond academics. But what I generally do is I would listen to things that I already had a faint idea about. So I went ahead and sort of signed up, and then how things turned up was uh, they were entirely different from what I could anticipate at all. I normally thought that I'd spend about 6 months or a year, learn what I had to learn, and then move out. But then I ended up spending 4 years. In my fourth year, I was serving as their president, and uh, ISEC to be say if I had to put it in a grinder and sort of take out the essence, I think it is one of the very few platforms in the world that can actually help you have a say self-directed experiential reflective learning, which is in situ, as in I am doing marketing work, finance work, sales work, BD, PR, HR, without having a single clue about it, but I'm sort of say self-directing myself to a couple of books that I can read to sort of shape better. But it gives you a great opportunity to learn from the person you are succeeding. So every role is for a year. who you succeed gives you a lot of heavy transition, as in what they've been trying to achieve. And so every year, a vision tries to continue with extra components of what the person brings with his individuality. But frankly speaking, with you, I think that shaped the course of my life. As in, I had the chance to work at UN. I had the chance to work at the ISEC United States branch, which is at the Wall Street. So for about 6 to 7 weeks, I had a good chance to sort of see what the Wall Street culture was like. But I think by the end of 4 years, I worked in about 6 or 7 nations, including US, Portugal, Spain, Poland, India, and Nepal. Uh, it was a beautiful experience. And I think by the end of my fourth year, we had achieved a sales target of about 38 lakhs. We had I had led personally, I had led about 121 individuals, and I think we grew by almost 400%, as in we did tremendously well. And all my team was basically just 20-year-olds trying to handle a budget of about 1 CR. So it's a beautiful platform for anybody seeking it.
So, so you later went on to EdQuest. So how did Isaac shape your journey in EdQuest? Because when I feel EdQuest was also incorporating the feeling of having a world-class education experience, right? From Kennedy Space Center or the United Nations or the International Court of Justice, or all the posts that I've seen, the students had an experience to visit. This was something that you had previously experienced, that I feel that later on went on to incorporating EdQuest and scaling it to a magnitude level. So what role do you feel that Isaac played in the journey that you had in EdQuest?
I think so. So how I landed up in EdQuest was that one of my clients in ISEC wanted to run an educational startup. At 22, he hired me as the CEO. I had nobody on my team, and so initially, what he wanted to do was say we're with the board and the CEO, where I mean, the board and myself, where we wanted to go was say make sure kids in Indian schools have culturally immersive experiences abroad, and say they can attend different workshops across the world. But then, how Isaac shaped my worldview was that I wanted to make sure that my idea, or that EdQuest as an enterprise or a venture could sort of give kids an opportunity to activate their global citizenship, and say they could see from the eyes of a different culture, of a different nation, of a different methodology to teach, to work, to sort of study. So we started doing a lot of summer exchanges, cultural exchanges, academic exchange programs, where these kids would go to a different school, study there for a week, come back, study there for 6 months, come back. My point was very simple. I wanted to understand that how can I prepare the right amount of behaviors, or say equip these kids with the right amount of opportunities to shape their behavior, that these kids, when they enter workspace in say about 5 or 6 years, or say 3 years, they are fundamentally better trained or better attuned to running a global team, being a better world citizen. Because one of the values that I learned while I was serving at ISEC was how to be a world citizen, and sort of say alter your worldview in a way that you realize how every country and how every race or every culture is trying to, they have a singular path. All of them have singular paths, but they have a shared destiny. as in they have a shared uh, point to which they're trying to go. It's just that their worldview is very different from ours. So I think EdQuest later became, so from a travel company, we shaped them into, so we shaped the whole idea into an experiential development platform, uh, which would give kids all sorts of opportunities like staying with the host family in Canada, staying with the host family in Greece, in France, but also we gave them good opportunities to be in the UN, uh, attend uh, the spaces that were happening in the UN. We gave them a chance to visit some of the best Ivy League universities in the United States, UPenn, Harvard, Yale. We took them to Princeton, and we would give them a guest lecture, as in to make sure that they understand how the educational landscape and how the ed tech market space is actually so much different from what we believe it is. So yes, I I, th- uh, I think to sum up my answer to your question is that uh, how it shaped my belief into turning EdQuest's entire model of how we were trying to operate here was that we would not just try to look at the idea of traveling, but the idea of what behavior will the kid graduate school with, and what is it that the kid can experientially learn through travel. You
So, sir, you recently resigned from EdQuest, right? And Curentia happened. So, what is the story behind Curentia? What was your vision? I know what's your mission behind it, but how did Curentia Academy start? And how do you look forward to it? And you told me that you were wanting to have the world class educationists in the leadership sector, having teach people and teach students in India in developing those skills. But what is the story behind Curentia? What came in your mind that it clicked that you wanted to have the first leadership school in the country?
know, Curentia is very close to my heart. The reason is that at EdQuest, we were trying to work around a profitable model of business and sort of say, I was trying to infuse my personal values into it, but it could never be built, say, solely on my personal values, right? I was the founder of EdQuest as well, but I think the organizational values were uh, a lot more active than the personal values that I wanted to infuse. So they they did exist, but say they depended on what product or what offering we were trying to give, and what was the scope of personal value being added to it, or say infused, or say you know be cohesive. Curentia, why it's personal to me is because when I started EdQuest, or when I was serving as the president of Isaac Chandigarh, I realized that formal education had very little role to play in the sort of individual I wanted to become, in the sort of leader I wanted to become, in the sort of learning I wanted to gift myself, or say, it formal education gave me little scope to own my learning, to own my growth, own my experiential graph, or say experiential, uh, uh, experientially how I wanted to orient my future self. Formal education had limited tools for that, so I gave up on that idea completely. So what I started doing with EdQuest was that I would bring in a lot of ideas into the team, give one of them appoint one of them to execute that concept. But together as a team, and for myself personally, I worked a lot on self evolution, as in how fast could each of us evolve ourselves and then contribute, or say fuel our business outcomes. तो जब मैं एडक्वेस्ट में था, मैंने बहुत सारी सेल्स बुक्स पढ़ी, बहुत marketing books पढ़ी. I read a lot about how to manage talent. I did every possible thing that it was possible. Read every resource and journal about how I could be a better leader, how I could be a better salesman. But also, I would run reflective spaces for myself and review my mistakes. But it gave me a state of pure consciousness, as in, where was I trying to go with every step, and say what I could do with what I had in the present moment every day, as in, you know, which school, what sort of kids, where can we plan the trip, what workshops can we attend, what is the school asking, blah, 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 blah. But then I realized that this idea changed my entire life, as in how I gave up on formal education. And what I did was move to an in situ experiential learning, reflective, self directed concept of attainment of education. So I wanted to take it forward. Uh, I lost my father in 2017. That led to my spiritual awakening, and I started reading a lot of books on how do I incorporate more spiritual practices, so I understand the meaning of life, so I understand why am I here, what am I trying to do here, and why have I taken up a human incarnation, and what is the unique soul print. So I often talk about soul prints. The way we have a fingerprint, we have a soul print, we have a unique purpose of why we're born, right? uh, तो Curentia के साथ my purpose was that I wanted to give back everything that my unique experiences gave me. Look, say, I'll be very frank with you. Oprah, the reason Oprah is who she is because she infused the personal values of inclusion, of integrity, of racial equality, of say, uh, the state that she wanted to achieve with everybody was that she was trying to give them compassion. At the time when she started this, everybody was trying to say, uh, every journalist was trying to polarize uh, their country. They were trying to talk bad about, the government. They were trying to be divisive and bring racial gaps. Now, if you look at SpaceX, yes, now Elon Musk runs a vertical transportation company.
Right.
It is a vertical trucking company, और कुछ भी नहीं है उससे
Uh,
ज्यादा. It's just वो cargo ऊपर लेके जाता है, and then he comes,
Hyperloop.
the rockets come back,
Yeah.
and then he has hyperloop. But the point is, his personal value says that he fears that Earth can soon, life on Earth can soon be ruled out, and we can be attacked, and we can sort of say lose life. So he wants to colonize Mars. His personal value is that he wants to make human beings an interplanetary species, right? So SpaceX is the way SpaceX is, and it is not replicated by any other company in the world. You have Virgin Galactic, you have Jeff Bezos's company called Blue Origin, both of them trying to do the same thing. Then we have Boeing. But the point is, SpaceX is irreplaceable and inimitable. It can't be replicated because its business model is not unique. The point is, the founder's values are infused. So Curentia was started up with that thought, that my personal value is based on my unique experiences that I had, and how experiential learning transformed my life and who I am right now. Uh, I wanted to give that back to everybody. And starting from school, uh, the current idea that we're trying to process is how do we give kids physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, personal growth practices and techniques and tools, but also set up an incubation labs in schools starting from grade 6. Kids can learn from their mentors, run into an apprenticeship model, upskill themselves. And kids are not rated on grades, but rated on their skill levels. So somebody on grade 7 can have an amazing amount of skills in, say, skill 1. Skill 2, so in skill 1, he's employed with one of the student companies that wants his skill. and say once he has 3 or 4 good amount of skills, he can execute his own business idea and the school can fund it. And see, the point is not कि वो business idea क्या launch कर रहा है. The point is the whole concept of building, scaling, failing, trying to reiterate the business. If we can implant that thing in a child कि hypothesis कैसे बनाना है, which assumptions are you dealing with, how do you test them, how do you say, build a hypothesis that actually is validated, and then which problem are you solving. अगर वो चीजें हम स्कूल में करना शुरू कर दें, if we can do it beginning from school, kids would probably not need college to sort of learn how to run a business. Because frankly speaking with you, the individuals I've spoken through Curentia, one of which is you, and one of the many are, say, victims of domestic abuse, or say anybody who had a unique experience, wanted to organize around that idea, have a vision of how they want to run a venture, and sort of say, okay, but other individuals cannot or should not face the same problem as they did. Like, let's supposedly take you want to make sure that nobody else should be able to go through what you did, so you wrote a book, right? That idea, everybody starting from when they graduate school, or say in school itself, should know how to build a business model around an idea, have a hypothesis, validate it, know the problem you're solving, discover your customers, and start already in school. You don't need college to teach you how to build a business model around an idea or execute an idea. So चाहे आप entrepreneur हो या entrepreneur हो, if you're in the company or you run your own venture, schools should not keep you away from knowing how to execute the knowledge that is given to you, right? That's where we're trying to head. And I think this company is solely birthed by my personal values, and that is what is going to keep it inimitable. Uh, and hopefully, I can transform the way our schools run.
Right. So coming to the point, if anybody who wants to reach out to you, right? So what are the ways that they can actually reach out to you? And if, as a person, I come up to you, and I am an aspiring entrepreneur, I have an idea, I want to build upon them. You previously told me that figuring out a business model around that idea, that was something that you could help me out with. What other things can Curentia Academy do for these wannabe entrepreneurs? And give what other service that you guys can provide me at this age? Because I don't have time that I go back to school, that I have lost out on that phase where I could start out from point one. I'm on a stage that I might be having a job soon, or maybe it's the time that I have to make a decision upon my career. So how can you help me out in this stage at this point?
Right. Like you said, one of the things that we do is we help budding entrepreneurs build a sustainable and a strong business model around an idea, which also includes what hypotheses are they carrying, how do you validate what assumptions you've made around the market, and what problem do you solve, and say how do you gather feedback, and how do you discover who your customer is going to be. So all the elements of building a business model, as well as transforming one, as well as finding the right innovation for your model of business, but also hiring the right leaders, or say which type of innovation leaders might a company or a venture need at its earlier stages or its middle stages, or say when it's about to turn into a proper profitable business. uh, Other than that, one of my forte is personal growth practices, which also includes spiritual practices, personal growth tools, as in how do you set better goals, how do you orient yourself with a strong purpose, how do you find out what your purpose is. How do you craft a vision? How do you craft a mission? What is the difference between vision and mission? Organizational values or founder values go. How do you play between them? What is the entrepreneurial skill set that you carry, and what are the complementary skills that you need in a team to be, say, to work at an optimum uh, efficiency. Besides that, we also give one-to-one coaching, as in what uh, some part of my clients include those who've had a trauma, be it of any sort, or who've had a loss, or who are taking a major career shift, or anybody who's gone through a life transitional event, as in which has entirely transcended his or her life. Or say the least, I think part of my job here at Curentia is to counsel and guide kids one on one, or say guide entrepreneurs one on what is it that they can do to increase or augment the capabilities that their team has in their startups. How is it that they can, say, build up layers of products and services to match the edtech market space in the world? Because what we're researching in UPenn with my course is that what is edtech industry headed towards. So my classroom has about 50 educators from Germany, US, including the faculty of UPenn. And then we have somebody from Colombia, Brazil, from India, from Australia, from England. So all of us together trying to, you know, research and study about what is it that we can do in regards to entrepreneurial innovation. So that is one of my areas of research as well, which I can definitely help anybody with. um, I think anything that has to do with startups. So we just don't deal with the funding part of it, uh, but anything except on beyond funding, as in how do you market them, how do you sell it, how do you find the right community for you to, do this. But also one of the biggest things that we can help anybody with is add more layers of consciousness to be able to live better and navigate life better, right? So just for you to know, I was reading one of the books by Vishen Lakhani. It's called The Buddha and the Badass. And I studied how growth has to be the fundamental process for any individual. And then any company, any venture, any startup has to prioritize growth over anything else, as in the rate of self evolution, the rate of growth of their employees. But at the same time, also make sure that they they constantly switch between those two modes that I mentioned to you about, the acceleration mode and the navigation mode. You are constantly building and iterating new products, innovating better, executing your business idea perfectly, trying to find new services that you can give, trying to increase the capabilities of your staff, but also taking out time to figure out if you need a change in your mission, if you need a new opportunity to sort of invest into, if the impact that you're making is actually relevant, if you need time to sort of sit with more industrial experts and solve more problems, and also have time to review your mistakes and add layers to your business model, right? So both of these modes of operation, as in acceleration mode and navigation mode, and one of the major components in navigation mode that we can help with is increasing your personal growth tools, right? So every person in your startup has some amount of emotional, intellectual, mental, physical, spiritual tools that can help them reorient with the vision that they have, and the vision that is, you know uh, of the workspace that they're serving, and reorient them with who they are as an individual, and what are they trying to create, as in making them more conscious players at work, right? They can share better, they can work better, and they can grow better in terms of their personal growth. So we help them in both of these modes, that they can constantly shift between these two modes.
So this is my second last question to you. Sir, I read all whatever you write on Instagram. You beautifully express it. Well, I was going through one of your posts, and there was a phrase called adding positive narratives to failure. Well, I, to a point, can understand what you were trying to say. I can't go to the backdrop for the. I want you to explain the deeper meaning behind this phrase. That how can I actually do that?
Right. So what generally happens is when you sort of say operate at a level of pure consciousness, you understand that every event that happens to you, every experience that happens to Anmol at any point is trying to awaken Anmol and make him more conscious, make him more aware about the lessons that are in place for him. Every failure before it happens gives you certain amount of and certain number of signals way before it actually happens, right? Every experience. So I mean, if you had to take out the essence of a failure, it basically is uh, an awakening, a personal growth, a spiritual advancement, say, of your spirit, and a lesson that you need to learn in this life to be able to navigate your future, right? That is what a failure is. And so when I write a positive narrative to a failure, the background of it is that when a failure becomes so painful, it's your soul or your spirit's way of smacking you in the back of your head and say slapping you in your face to make you understand that there's a lesson for you, so you better learn it, right? So when you don't learn by yourself, there are certain events which may have come in your life, which may have been wanting to teach you, but when you don't learn at all through those little signs which are trying to make you conscious, so failures come to you as your soul's gift in the form of pain, but they lead to a shift of your values, right? Whenever you see somebody's had a big failure, it's normally led to an a shift in their consciousness. They've become aware to a different dimension of of individuals that they deal with, of workspaces that they serve, of the personal relationships that they have, but also there emerge new values. Failure ke baad ekdam you learn new values, you become more conscious about things, you understand a lot many more dimensions to the worldview. Failures typically engineer and re-alter your worldview. How do you view the world? It irreversibly shifts, right? So failures can be looked at as data points in your life, right? Failures are nothing but data points in your life. They are those points in your life with which there was a sudden fall, and then your graph increased, and then there was a fall. So you grow in two ways, right, Anmol? One is your sudden revelation. Something immediately clicks to you and you're like, oh aha, that was what I was missing out on. And uh, that is all I wanted to hear from him. So let's suppose that you were on a call with me. I am not sure what it was, but I'm sure you were thrilled by something that just struck, the right chord inside you, and it stuck home. That this is exactly what I wanted to hear, and wow, I've got the idea that I want to work on. Right. The second way to grow is through failures. So when you plot your growth chart, तुम कभी अपनी लाइफ का ग्रोथ चार्ट कभी करोगे प्लॉट तो देखना either the sudden bursts of spikes or the massive dips and then there rises, right? So that's how a human being grows. So failures are just data points in your life, right? Positive narrative means looking at them and understanding what data point did that failure in the first year of my postgraduate degree lead to? Which values did it give me? How am I more conscious at my workspace or in my college? Uh, how differently do I view the world right now? How do I alter? Oh, yeah, sorry. How did the failure help me alter my frame or my lens to look at different opportunities? And in terms of my spiritual growth, what am I seeking after that failure? As in, what did that make me realize about my life and how I could leave it, how I could lead it better? So that's what I mean by making sure that there are positive data points in your life, because you look at what change have they brought into your life. Uh, Say you lost out on a job, but the career that you entered into or the venture you started was exactly what you needed for your spiritual awakening. It was exactly what your soul print, or isko Hindi mein dharma bolte hain, your unique role here on the universe. What is your, so mera failure hua, I lost a job, or say anybody lost a job. I broke up with my girlfriend, or say I had a massive accident, or say I had the worst horrible experience that I could ever had in my family. But what emerged from there? What career am I into now? And how is it fundamentally so much better than where I was? And if it's not better, then how has it made you a different human being? And what part of it do you understand? What part of life do you understand better now? Right? So there are hundreds of things, Anmol, that I probably can't accumulate and give them to you. But what I can leave you with is a mental construct that when you think about your failures, you need not identify with them in the first place. And second is you need to draw out the changes they've brought into your life, and how a part of you that could not bear a certain miserable experience has turned into, so you've destroyed, and that part of you has died, and what is birthed now is a part of you that understands that those experiences exist. How do you transcend them? Yes.
Right, sir. So my concluding question: to get my basics sorted in leadership and self-consciousness and self-awakening. I know that you're an avid reader. I go through your posts and stories. What three book recommendations that you can give to my listeners that, yeah, this book can actually help you scale your level and give you a sense of realization or self-consciousness that, and a sense of direction which can actually help you succeed.
Right. So let's say if you're looking for personal growth, then there are two books by the same author called Vishen Lakhiani. One is called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and second is called The Buddha and the Badass. Uh, if you're looking about spiritual growth, then I think one of the good starter book is Inner Engineering by Sadhguru. It's a decent book. Uh, and say one of the other books that you can read if you're trying to, sort of say fine tune your spiritual direction, uh, is this book by Deepak Chopra called Meta Human. It's a beautiful book and entirely based on science, not much on mysticism, but more on science. If you're looking for business books, then there's a book that completely transformed my life. It's called Exponential Organizations by Salim Ismail. Uh, this book has been printed and given birth to by Singularity University, which is a university based in Silicon Valley. Amazing university. Uh, is led by individuals like Peter Diamandis and Musk. You know, amazing university. So that book is called Exponential Organizations. If you're looking at another business book, then I think a good business book should be the future is faster than you think. You know, that is one of the good books which talks about where the future is headed. If you're into education and you want to read some good pieces, then there are two uh, research papers by the World Economic Forum. They come by the name of white papers. One was written in January 2020, which is called the WEF, World Economic Forum Future of Education and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Uh, you can go to their website and read it. It's called a white paper research. Second one came into, I think, about 2008 to 2017, but it's a wonderful uh, research document as well. uh, I think anything that has to do with education, you can study the work of Ken Robinson. He has a book called Why Schools Kill Creativity. uh, And if you want to know what books changed my life, I think, of course, there is no one book that's fundamentally changed me. But I think one of the great books that I really love is Many Lives, Many Masters. It's by Dr. Brian Weiss, and talks about the entire meaning of human birth, and why what are we here to achieve. Uh, and say one of the other books that typically changed my worldview has to be, I think, the one that I mentioned earlier. It's called Exo.
Thank you so much for giving us your time and
Thank you,
beautifully
Anmol.
incorporating the sense of direction to all my viewers. And to
Thank you.
everybody who wants to reach out to Sir, Sir has a page called Curentia Academy. And I assure he's a very helpful man and he'll help you in any way that you want. And if there are any inquiries, just go on to the page. I'll leave the link in the description. Thank you so much, sir.
Just a reminder, if you're looking for scaling your startup, one of the best books that I've ever read is called The $1 Trillion Coach. If you're looking to scale your startup and look for the solutions of basic issues we face at workspaces, $1 Trillion Coach. And there's an author that comes by the name of Simon Sinek. I'm sure you've heard of his name.
Right.
He has a book called The Infinite Game. It got launched last year. It's a beautiful book if you want to know on what is it based. It's based on how do you navigate different stages of a startup. How do you form a vision? How do you make sure that your company stays ethical? How do you ensure that everybody develops a unique purpose and stays inclined to the company's vision? And it talks about how do you handle talent, you know, and how do you lead, and who is a leader, and how do you differentiate between a manager and a leader. So that book is called Infinite Game. I have read both of these. I incidentally skipped the names when you asked me, but these two are amazing reads for anybody who's running a startup already. $1 Trillion Coach and The Infinite Game. Thank you so much. I love the opportunity. It has been it has been a complete honor for me to be serving you. If anybody from your viewership or yourself, if you want to say recommend my services to anybody, we have a Facebook page called Curentia, and we have an Instagram page called Curentia Academy. I would love to hear from you. Let me know if I can be of any help. I am always, always, always willing to serve you. And thank you so much for giving me your time.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye.
Thank you.